Iran appears to have found a way around mounting U.S. pressure in the Strait of Hormuz, with reports claiming that nearly 7 million barrels of crude oil were exported even as President Donald Trump pushed for tougher restrictions on Tehran's energy trade. Iranian tankers reportedly managed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, marking what some observers see as a significant test of Washington's efforts to tighten control over one of the world's most important oil routes. The reported transit of Hilda I, Amber, Silvia I and Happiness I is now raising questions about whether U.S. and allied naval forces were unable to stop or deter the vessels as they moved through the strategic waterway carrying Iranian-linked crude exports. 4 Iranian oil tankers passed through the Strait of Hormuz on June 8, according to data compiled by maritime intelligence firm Kpler, drawing attention to the continued movement of Iranian crude through one of the world's most strategically important waterways. Kpler's vessel tracking data identified the 4 ships as Hilda I, Amber, Silvia I and Happiness I, all of which were detected transiting the Strait of Hormuz despite heightened scrutiny of Iranian oil exports. The 4 tankers were carrying a combined cargo of approximately 7 million barrels of crude oil, making the transit one of the largest reported movements of Iranian-linked oil through the region in recent months. According to reports citing maritime tracking data, this marked the first passage of Iranian-flagged tankers through the Strait of Hormuz since April 15, ending a nearly 2-month gap in such recorded movements. Satellite monitoring and vessel tracking analysis reportedly detected the tankers' movements even though their transponders were switched off, highlighting the growing role of space-based surveillance in monitoring global oil shipments. Kharg Island remains the backbone of Iran's oil industry, with roughly 90% of the country's crude exports passing through the strategically vital terminal before heading toward international markets. Iranian tankers frequently conduct ship-to-ship crude transfers in waters near Malaysia and Singapore, a practice that allows cargoes to be shifted between vessels before continuing their journey across Asia. These ship-to-ship transfers have become a key part of Iran's sanctions evasion strategy, helping Tehran move oil through complex maritime networks even as Western restrictions target its energy exports. China remains the primary destination for much of Iran's crude oil, with analysts and tracking data indicating that the majority of Tehran's seaborne exports ultimately find their way to Chinese buyers despite ongoing sanctions and pressure. The Iranian Navy says that on June 3 it targeted the command and control systems aboard a U.S. destroyer, striking at what it describes as the ship's brain in Gulf waters. Tehran insists the strike was a direct response to what it calls aggressive U.S. measures against Iranian commercial shipping, accusing Washington of harassment at sea. This development was announced in an official statement issued by Iran's Army Public Relations Office, giving the claim the stamp of formal military approval. According to that statement, the U.S. destroyer was attempting to enter Iranian waters, a move Tehran frames as a clear violation of its sovereignty and red lines. However, U.S. Central Command has flatly denied Iran's account, rejecting the claim that any U.S. Navy destroyer was hit or successfully targeted. CENTCOM went so far as to say Iran is lying, insisting that American assets at sea are operating freely and without damage despite Tehran statements. Iran's statement said, and I quote, "A few hours ago, following aggressive actions, violations of the regulations governing the Strait of Hormuz, and hostile acts against Iranian commercial vessels in the Sea of Oman, by the terrorist and aggressive U.S. military, the Navy, immediately upon detecting and identifying the source of those actions, targeted the command and control center responsible for them." End quote. Meanwhile, eyewitnesses inside Iran reported hearing the sounds of explosions and active air defenses, according to Iran International, suggesting something significant was unfolding in the skies. Residents in eastern Tehran described the distinct thud of air defense fire and then a single, loud explosion around 8:45 p.m., sending people rushing to their windows and balconies. Similar air defense sounds were reported from Kharg and Urmia, while blasts were heard near Bojnord Airport, pointing to a wider pattern of aerial activity across multiple Iranian cities. Iran stressed that its navy is closely monitoring what it calls a criminal and aggressive enemy presence, keeping constant watch on U.S. movements in the region. The statement warns that the Navy will respond to any hostile act in the shortest possible time, signaling readiness for rapid retaliation if it feels provoked. Tehran further vowed that its forces will exact revenge in the harshest manner for the blood of the sailors of the destroyer Dina, framing its actions as avenging fallen martyrs. This latest claimed attack comes after both Tehran and Washington exchanged fire under the shadow of a fragile ceasefire, raising fears that the truce is rapidly unraveling in the Gulf. At least one person has been killed in the devastating aftermath of Iran's deadly strikes on Kuwait. Kuwaiti authorities also alleged that multiple people sustained injuries following Iran's drone attacks. With the international airport suffering significant damage, Kuwait has suspended all commercial flight operations. Airport operations in Kuwait are reportedly expected to remain halted until further notice from authorities. The airport had only reopened for normal operations on June 1st before the strikes took place. Kuwait's Ministry of Defense confirmed that Iran launched multiple hostile drones during its June 3rd attack. According to Kuwait's Ministry of Defense, Iran fired 13 ballistic missiles and 17 drones during the assault. Gulf allies have now come out strongly against Iran following attacks on Bahrain and Kuwait. The Gulf Cooperation Council released a statement on June 3rd condemning what it called ongoing aggression. The GCC reportedly accused Iran of carrying out cowardly attacks against civilians in Bahrain and Kuwait. GCC Secretary-General Jassim Mohammed al-Budaiwi also accused Iran of hostile actions against Gulf nations. The statement further alleged that Iran's attacks amounted to violations of international law and accepted norms. Al-Budaiwi also urged the international community to take a firm stand and end Iran's aggression. The Gulf Council Secretary-General said, and I quote, "The attacks reflect the Iranian regime's insistence on pursuing rejected hostile policies targeting the security, stability, and sovereignty of the member states. Iran is in violation of international law, the United Nations Charter, and all international norms, stressing that this requires a firm international stance to put an end to these dangerous Iranian aggressive practices. We underscored that the security of the Kingdom of Bahrain and the State of Kuwait is an integral part of the security of the GCC states, and that the Cooperation Council states stand united in confronting these attacks and fully support all measures and procedures taken by the two countries to defend their security, sovereignty, and territorial integrity." End quote.